Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, we are going to be doing a complete rundown of the Affliction Warlock and Dragonflight Season 3. This is one of the most fantastic times to be playing this specialization in recent expansions. It's honestly been kind of miserable in past ones. You've kind of been a training dummy, really tough to get things going, but this patch is a lot better, and I've been having a huge amount of fun on it. I've climbed over 2,500 in Shuffle and into the top 5 of Affliction Warlocks, and I wanted to reveal to you what I am doing to get there: gear, stats, talents, strategies, secrets, and tips from beginner to pro, so that you've got everything covered. So the first thing that we're going to need to talk about, obviously, is our stats, and I do see a lot of Affliction Warlocks opting for a little bit more mastery, and then haste, and then versatility. Myself personally, I'm aiming to try and get around 29 to 32% haste. I have a lot more versatility than other Warlocks. I have about 5% more at the moment in this current gear set. A lot of Warlocks are opting to go down to 24. I feel really squishy at that low level of versatility. Generally, you are attacked a lot, so it can be lobby dependent. Obviously, lower verse would be better in caster lobbies. Higher verse is going to be better into melee cleave lobbies, but I'd rather optimize for the situations where I'm weaker in, so that I have a better chance of winning them, because in the caster lobbies, you're already likely going to be favored, but you could buy more gear as Conquest moves to unlock, hopefully in the near future. So that way you can have two sets of gear. One's going to be more mastery heavy and a little bit less verse. But right now I'm focused around 29 to 32% haste, and around 29% versatility, and then all the rest going into mastery. As Affliction, you are going to want to wear your 4-piece bonus, and you're going to not want to buy the helmet because it's not great stats on it. The 4-piece bonus is going to be granting our Soul Rot, giving us 3 Umbra Fire Kindling, which is going to increase the damage of our next Malefic Rapture by 50%. And additionally, Umbra Fire Kindling causes Malefic Rapture to extend the duration of your damage over time effects and your Haunt. Although Haunt is not going to be a huge deal in this build, I'm pretty much not running it this patch. Soul Rot dealing 15% increased damage and lasting 4 seconds longer. This set bonus is entirely locking you into a Soul Rot type of playstyle for this patch. So I would recommend that when we get to the talents. For crafted pieces, I've got Precognition. I've got this on my helmet with a haste versatility missive. Although I may build more crafted pieces in the future. Make sure that you're following my stream. It's linked in the description down below, so you can ask any questions in the future. But at this time, I'm going for more haste. I feel like the quality of life of having higher haste is better, and it just allows you to fake cast interrupts, which is going to be one of the most difficult points of playing in any match specifically. And I currently have a ring that's being crafted that is going to have mastery increased when above 90% health. Hopefully that ring is going to be completed soon, but it also has haste and versatility on it, as again, that is going to be my main focus, is to try and get around 29 to 32% haste, and then be able to get a lot of free casted spells in that regard. Those are the 2 crafted pieces. I think it's called Blue Silken Lining for the 90% mastery on your second crafted item. Although I may now move into more crafted items, I may not. You'll notice that PvP pieces are really heavy on versatility, which honestly isn't that bad, because when you're wearing your 4-piece bonus, most of them don't have versatility. Only one of them has versatility. So wearing more PvP focus or conquest gear as opposed to crafted gear, if you want to make yourself more tanky in these melee lobbies, is not going to be that bad, which is what I am focusing on at the moment with this secondary ring. Although in the near future, after this crafted ring is completed, I may swap my world PvP weapon for a mastery weapon. But at the moment, I would highly recommend that you get the world PvP weapon if you're gearing up, because it's just going to save you a lot of conquest points. The weapon is the last thing that I'm going to buy, or it's something that I'm going to select from the vault, just because it is so expensive and it's not worth the conquest when you can just so easily get this one for honor. It's just not worth it. So again, those are my main focus. The gems that I'm going for are haste, mastery. I may shift this again to mastery and then haste, depending on what my haste values are in the future. But at this current gear set, we are going haste and mastery. We're running movement speed enchants on our cloak, movement speed enchants on our wrists here, and movement speed on our boots. This is really important when you're using mechanics like your portal so that you can more easily run away and escape your opponents, as opposed to something like Leech. You're going to want to be evading attacks as opposed to tanking damage. We have intellect stamina on pants, and we've got waking stats on chest. And that's pretty much it for my gear. I may switch my haste enchants again for mastery if my haste gets like exceedingly high. You know, we're probably pushing like 35% or something like that. You can just swap your enchants or your gems around to be more mastery dense, and it's going to feel just the same, or it's going to feel a little bit better for you. Now let's start talking talking about the talents, like I said, due to the fact that we're running the 4-piece, our build is likely going to be focused heavily around Soul Rot, which unfortunately means that incorporating Haunt is not really going to be viable because we need to be running Dread Touch, which is going to be a huge component of our damage. You'll notice throughout the talents on the left that we are running Amplify Curse. This is a really powerful mechanic in PvP, and it is something that Affliction gets to abuse probably the most of any of the Warlock specs. And then anything that has to do with percent health, whether it's your Dark Pact or just overall increasing your stamina, these are talents that you are going to want to get. These are talents that, because our stats are so high, our stamina is so high, that they get an incredible amount of value. And then any talents that have to do with Drain Life are going to be great as well. I'll have this talent tree linked in the description down below, or you can screenshot it if you want to just copy it over for yourself. This build is focused around multi-dotting and Drain Soul. So we're going to be using Withering Bolt and Drain Soul and Shadow Embrace to channel our Drain Soul in order to maintain the stacks of dots through our PvP talents like Rot and Decay, which are going to extend our dots, but also give us more single target pressure and enable us to fake cast. Drain Soul is one of the best abilities to use to fake interrupts in PvP. We're going to be running Jinx, which is a pretty much mandatory PvP talent, which is now going to make our other curses like Curse of Exhaustion, Weakness, and Tongues instantly apply Agony and Corruption. So 3 effects for 1 global cooldown, whereas previously Affliction was really global intensive and it was tough to pull all of that off. You're now going to be able to. And I am currently running Rampant Afflictions. I think having multi-target UAs and just trying to stay alive as long as possible is going to be a lot more favorable in a lot of situations. I personally don't ever change these talents in any circumstance. I feel like they're really good. You may be able to drop Rot and Decay in some situations to get things like Impish Instincts, although it doesn't feel necessary for me personally, or Nether Ward against casters, or even possibly Gateway Mastery on really large maps to kite against melee DPS. I have not been running Oblivion. I feel like Oblivion is a lot better when you're actually able to run the Haunt build and focus more on single target, unfortunately, as I had been in the past. I have been this is all I've played. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. These are the only talents that I have played, and I'm getting into the top 5, and it has not felt like I really need to switch them around. So you can think of it that way. It's going to be a lot easier to just get it going. So that's the talent. That's the gear that we've talked about, the rating. Let's talk about some of the basic things that you're going to be doing. So at the start of an arena match, obviously, you're going to set up your little nest. You're going to put your portal behind a pillar. You're going to put a gateway going somewhere from that pillar, right? And then you're going to move away from it. This is going to be the start of pretty much any PvP situation. And you're going to have multiple enemies running at you. So while they're running at you, you need to determine some things. Are they a physical melee attacker? Are they a caster? Or are they a healer? Or are they trying to get crowd control on somebody in your team? Or are they trying to run away? Because it's going to determine what globals you're using. So if everybody's standing in the neutral map and you've got 2 casters and a healer, you're going to put Curse of Tongues on every single one of them. And then you're going to try and get UA up onto those targets. You can use Drain Soul and stop your cast to try and fake interrupts. And as you're channeling Drain Soul, after you've got UAs, you can use your instant Malefic Raptures to increase the damage to all of your dots and apply Dread Touch to the target. Now, if you're fighting multiple melee DPS, you're going to want to use Curse of Weakness, and then Tongues on the healer. If your team does not have any slows, you may want to use Curse of Exhaustion to be able to kite melee or to deny enemy healers or enemy attackers from moving in and getting CC on your healers. And when you're in a really tough situation, like an enemy is using really powerful damaging cooldowns, you can use Amp Curse of Weakness to make that target unable to critically strike. This is really powerful against melee attackers. And if this is something that you're probably not using if you're having a hard time with them, something like Windwalker Monk, because when they're unable to crit, you are removing a huge volume of their damage. Once you've gotten past the initial, you've got your first instant cast dots out, your healer is Tongues, you've got weakness on everything, and you've got a couple of UAs out. You're going to use things like your Phantom Singularity, and you're going to want to try and fish for your Soul Rot. And as you get Phantom Singularity, you want to soul swap that. You want Phantom Singularity on as many targets as possible, and you want to just be pump faking with Drain Soul. It's going to be your basic rotation, and usually Dark Glare to extend your Phantom Singularity and to extend your Soul Rot, although it can be dangerous to do that because a lot of healers will use AoE Dispel mechanics, so it really depends on what type of healer you're fighting against. Something like a Mistweaver, I would not necessarily recommend all-inning your dots on one attempt because they're just going to be able to remove them really easily, and it's going to be tough. You can obviously always fish for Shadow Furies whenever enemies are stacking up and try and get AoE stuns on them, fears on enemies as they're moving in. And whenever you're getting attacked, you're going to want to use Dark Pact pretty much at full health, because you only get the full value of it when you're at full health. And things like Unending Resolve, which is your major defensive cooldown, you want to be using this reasonably high on health, and you can use it while stunned, although you won't benefit from the effect that you are immune to interrupts during it. So I see a lot of Warlocks getting greedy with this, and it's costing them games. I use it really high health when I don't have a Dark Pact and I'm stunned with no trinket and I have no portal and I'm stuck in the middle of the map or something like that. I'm very just kind of like, okay, this is healer CC'd, no way out, no cooldowns. I need to use this at high health, not try and be greedy, because you can't really rely on it to save you in those emergency situations. We're going to get into some gameplay now. I've got a little VOD here that we're going to pop open. And in this game, we've got a Windwalker and 2 casters. So we just talked about, the entrance of the arena game on the training dummies. I'm going to move my camera here a little bit over. So we're going to get our portal. We're going to gateway. Actually, with a melee DPS, I run in and I put my portal on the enemy pillar because the melee has to run in. And we're going to use tongues, and tongues, because it's 3 casters, but we don't want to break that in cap, so we're not going to tongues right away. We use Soul Rod here first to bait and interrupt. He doesn't fall for the bait. We're getting our instant dots up because they have a lot of interrupts and they're going to all go into me. And I try and UA a pet behind the pillar. When you UA a pet behind the pillar, you can then soul swap off the pet onto the main target that you're attacking and completely avoid the interrupts. This is a nice, really kind of like newbie way to be able to get through interrupts. And now I'm just drain soul, pump faking, getting crowd control on the healer, and trying to bait interrupts, because as soon as one of these counter spells is used, we're going to have precog. Here I haymaker the healer into the pillar and try and go for a Shadow Fury. They lock me out, so we're going to have to move back towards this side. Soul Rod is pretty much all you can use when you're interrupted. We're still just channeling Drain Soul, getting stacks up with it through our talents, and trying to bait the mage to use counterspell. We get a UA onto the mage, so now we're going to soul swap that over onto the Warlock. We're a lot less kind of focused on Phantom Singularity against Double Caster because we're already inherently tanky. You want to just make sure you actually have dots when you're dealing with so many interrupts that last such a long duration, so you're actually supporting your melee attacker as much as you can. Again, more Drain Souls, just keeping our stacks up and keeping our dots going. And this is why I like that dot extension PvP talent, is so that you can avoid casting UA, because UA is one of your slowest spells. We get a fear here on the healer. We're not dotting the healer in this matchup. With a Windwalker, they do such heavy single target damage that you want to focus more on CC for the healer. I like using tongues here on the Observer and then just line of sighting and letting my dots kill it. Observer is a really annoying mechanic as Affliction, so that just makes you take one tick of it. We got him stuck in the room here. We've soul swapped dots. We go for a coil on the lock, stopping him from casting some damage here. We're going to go for Soul Rot when we're interrupted, which is just, again, a nice fallback to get onto. I see the Priest out in the middle. Go for a Fear, but it is on DR. We've loaded full dots on both targets. We're refreshing those with Curse of Tongues, port behind the pillar, Drain Soul, catch them off guard with these instant Malefic Raptures. Try and go for a Shadow Fury on the Priest here, and the lock gate's in the middle of the map, which is going to be a very bad mistake, as I'm able to finally free cast in the middle, and our Windwalker can take them down. So this is a little bit more strategical Affliction gameplay. A lot of times you are just going to want to dot as many things as possible, but when you're playing with a single target class like a Windwalker or a Hunter, something with Polymorph DR usually for the enemy healer, it's not always the best idea to dot the healer. You want to try and fear them. Usually maybe keep Curse of Tongues on them, but try not to break any CC, because obviously Jinx will apply dots and break it. And you're going to focus more on just channeling damage into the target that the single target DPS is focusing, and trying to focus on that gameplay. But being able to flex between multi-dotting is important. So here we're double caster, so we're setting up our nest behind our pillar. We're not going to push in, and we're just going to go in the middle of the map. We use Curse of Weakness, and I amp Curse of Weakness really fast here, which honestly is kind of a mistake because mages can decurse. You probably want to wait to amp Curse of Weakness until Serenity is popped from the Windwalker, although they just end up popping it and they don't end up decursing it. But you'll notice that because that weakness is on the monk, the Warlock isn't just immediately dead. Usually in this position, the Warlock that's being attacked by this monk would just be completely dead. But because this Curse of Weakness is up and it's preventing them from critting, we're in a really good spot. And I'm just spamming fear on their cooldowns. When you're fighting single target burst classes like Windwalker and honestly even Frost Mage, you want to CC their cooldowns in the opener. You know, just spam fear them 3 times, interrupt them, stop them from casting, and really disable their damage during their cooldowns, because their pressure falls off a lot, whereas yours doesn't. So lowering their spike is going to be more important than trying to go head to head. And then after their opener is done and their cooldowns have subsided, you can focus on trying to get your damage out. We're using weakness on melee attacker, tongues on mage, and tongues on healer. And we are multi-dotting because we have 2 warlocks, which means that we're just going to be doing damage to whatever we can. We get a haymaker on the priest here out into the open. Interrupts are finally gotten through. We get a Phantom Singularity. We're going to soul swap it because we are fighting more single target focus damage. We want that double Phantom Singularity, and we're just channeling Drain Souls, just getting the stacks up, coiling the healer, and this is when you're running that double damage dealing caster where you actually do want to dot the healer and punish them. The person getting attacked wants to pull them in the open, so my partner is pulling the priest out in the corner by pulling the monk in the corner, and when that healer gets out in the open, you send damage on them, and you just do as much pressure. Here we get a Soul Rot, max stack Drain Life onto the Windwalker. Just always do damage to anything that's in front of you and never chase. Trying to go for a Shadow Fury, and he flying Ox kicks me, but we get a full fear on the priest, and we are able to dunk the monk towards the end of the round. So you can see playstyle can completely shift round to round depending on your matchup. High CC single target class, you're going to focus on attacking what they're attacking and controlling the healer. When you've got two ranged DPS classes that are just focused on doing as much damage as possible, you want to pull enemies into the open and multi-dot them and AoE them down, and you're going to have a really good time. I've been really enjoying Affliction. It's honestly kind of like winning my heart over in terms of overall enjoyment. So I hope that this guide has helped you in setting up your Warlock and getting you on the path to success. And if it has, smash that subscribe button, comment down below, and hit the like button for the algorithm, please. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.